Hi, everybody. This is Deb Sosha. Welcome to today's call on the Digital Inclusion Leadership Awards. I am the Executive Director of Next Century Cities, and Next Century Cities is a nonprofit that helps communities ensure that all have access to fast, affordable, reliable broadband. Our job is to work with elected officials and city, town, and county staff to get broadband, and then once they have it, we work with them to use it well. I want to start the webinar by thanking our partner, Google Fiber, with whom we co-sponsor this award program. I'm really excited to be part of this conversation today. I have spent 32 years of my life as a teacher and a principal, and was then the executive director of a digital inclusion effort in Boston called Tech Goes Home, which is now running quite successfully in both Boston and Chattanooga. And a special thanks today to Kelly McCarthy, who's on this call from TGH Chattanooga for some of the pictures, and also to Pat Millen from Davidson, North Carolina for the pictures, some of the other pictures as well. So I have a few housekeeping details, and then we'll jump right in. We're asking everyone to remain on mute so we can reduce the impact of ambient noise. If you have questions, and we hope you will, please type them in the chat box that's located on the bottom right hand of your screen. You can send them to everybody or just to the organizers, and we'll be sure to address them during the call. The webinar is being recorded and will be shared on our resource page should you want to refer back to it or share it with somebody else. Joining me on the call today is Pat Millen, the Executive Director of Eliminate the Digital Divide, or E2D. And Pat worked with Davidson, North Carolina on a very successful digital inclusion effort. And the city and E2D were recipients of one of our awards last year, as was Chattanooga Tech Goes Home. Before we hear from Pat, though, I'd like to review a few details about the award. So first, why did Google Fiber and Next Century Cities choose to create this opportunity to recognize city and county leaders for their effort to work toward digital equity? First, of course, we all know, you're on this call because you believe this, that there is a need for everybody to have access to fast, affordable, reliable internet at home. 50 million Americans do not have this access at home, and we know it matters in everything that we do. You can't get a job. You can't manage the homework gap. You can't participate in telehealth. You can't continue social ties unless you have access, and all of these things matter. We believe that it would be really beneficial to everyone if we shared these success stories so we could learn from one another. This isn't a problem that can be solved unless we all play a role, and we need everyone's help to address the issue. And in particular, we're talking about trying to bring on board as many city and county officials and uplift their stories as we possibly can. I'd now like to review the details of the award itself. So who can apply? The city, town, or county must be the applicant. However, we encourage and reward collaboration with nonprofits, schools, libraries, anyone in the community that may be able to support the work. Award categories: Leader in Digital Inclusion Best Practices is an award for existing programs with over a year of working on addressing the digital divide. The most promising plan is for a particularly promising new program that ensures digital inclusion in a community. So something that may not yet be implemented or in the early stages of implementation, but a cool idea that we should share. So we give 2 awards in each of those categories, and we'll give an additional one in each of those categories for something really innovative. So a cool idea that otherwise might not get an award can get an additional award. So we're literally giving out 6 awards. I'm going to talk now about the timeline. We opened the applications last month. Here is the URL. It's also on our website, so it's pretty easy to find. Today we'll do the webinar. The applications are not due until February 10th. They will be judged late in February, and the winners will be announced in March. So who are our previous winners? On our site as well, nextcenturycities.org under awards programs, you can see a little bit about each one of these programs, and I think that could be helpful to you as you consider applying. Key Spot in Philadelphia, Technology Matching Fund Program in Seattle, Unlocking the Connection in Austin, Tech Goes Home in Chattanooga, Mobile Tech Lab in Washington, D.C., and E2D in Davidson, North Carolina are all the winners from our last time around. So please do look on our site for more information about that. I'm now going to ask Pat to share his experience at E2D with you, as well as sharing how the recognition has assisted him to grow and enhance the work of E2D. Pat?
Thanks, Deb. So I guess as an introduction to E2D, we started off, my daughter who was on that last slide, when she was 12 years old, she came home from middle school one day, and excuse me, my voice is a little bit scratchy from a cold. She came home one day and said, "Dad, I don't get it. Every single assignment we get at school presumes that there's a computer at home, and I know there are lots of kids for whom that's not the case. That's fundamentally not fair. What are we going to do about it?" And as a family, we just started chewing on this question, and then we started going to some of our local officials in Davidson, North Carolina. We're a suburb of Charlotte. And we went to the mayor and some of the council people and just said, do we have a digital divide? We keep hearing about this, but does our town actually have it? We proceeded then to go to the elementary school. We have one elementary school in town, and we went to the principal and said, can you do an assessment to see how many, if there are any kids in this school that don't have a computer at home? And it was determined at that point that, in fact, there were 54 families that didn't have it, a computer at home. And so we decided, okay, we could probably come up for about $300. We could come up with a solution where the families could get a laptop computer, probably refurbished, and then we could help subsidize getting them the internet in their home. And in fact, Davidson is a town that has a municipal cable company that the town operates. And so that's what we did. We went out and raised $15,000. We thought about just going and raising it from, two wealthy people in town. And then the more we thought about it, we thought, you know what, this is a bigger problem, not just in Davidson, but also regionally and also in Charlotte. And if we're really going to attack this, we ought to try to do it in such a way that we can find sustainable solutions that can go further than just one elementary school. Everything we did from that moment on was nothing but pilot to pilot to pilot. And in the case of Davidson, North Carolina, we have a corporate Fortune 200 company up the road, just 2 miles up the road, which is Lowe's, the home improvement store. And I went to Lowe's and said, hey, can you guys help us out with this project? Can we have some of your decommissioning laptops? And they came back and said, yeah, we'll give you $500 a year. So that immediately took us to the next level. And we just started going from school to school, widening our concentric circles a little bit farther. We did all of the town of Davidson, North Carolina, and all the town of Cornelius, North Carolina, and most of the town under that, which is Huntersville. And since then, we have begun to tackle Charlotte, North Carolina, which has 75,000 students who live at or below the poverty line. And so over the course of the last 3.5 years, from those 54 that we distributed in August of 2013, we have, as of today, distributed 2,068 families' computers. Charlotte, we are working primarily with the 6 high schools with the highest rate of poverty in Charlotte. Our greatest day probably ever in our organization was October 1st, where we distributed 500 laptops that day to 500 families, and it was exactly 7 days and 200 yards from where Charlotte had had a race riot the week before. And from a messaging standpoint, it was so critical that Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, our partner in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library, be in a position to make this thing happen. We had talked about it, and regardless of the situation in Charlotte, we felt it was important to help these families get computers, and it worked out beautifully. The award we got from Next Century Cities and Google Fibers and the National League of Cities last year was an incredible honor, and one that we talk about all the time because we're I think justifiably proud of it. Whenever we seek grants now, we talk about the fact that when we just started in Davidson a few years ago, that our ability to make a difference in eliminating 100% of the town of Davidson's digital divide, that that impresses people to hear that, and to have this award sort of affirm the work that we did in Davidson is really, really satisfying. Everybody's looking at yellow cab on that slide, so I guess I should not bury the lead on that. Our goals for 2017, we have 3 primary goals. One is to distribute 5,000 laptops this coming year. 2 is to open a computer lab in Charlotte, wherein kids from West Charlotte High School will be employed at 2 times minimum wage to help us reimage all these computers and refurbish all these computers. The only absolute qualification for that job to make double minimum wage in our new computer lab is you have to be an E2D recipient, which is not hard at that school because everybody qualifies. And then the third objective for 2017 is Charlotte has a surprising, at least surprising to us, 3,000 kids who are homeless. And we started this fall with a pilot program trying to match up homeless children, McKinney-Vento program children, with laptops and hotspots. Because we talk about the homework gap and how hard it is to do your homework without a laptop. Think about how hard it is to do your homework without a laptop or even a home. And so with that, Deb, maybe we could just show that. This is a short 3-minute video.
When school ends, we go home. But I know somebody who isn't in a hurry. She doesn't have a home. She stays as late as possible. CMS provides a taxi that drives her to a shelter. How can she do homework without a home or a computer? We really wanted to help her. E2D stands for Eliminate the Digital Divide. We help student families who can't afford computers get them. Somebody important got a computer and a hotspot. Now, she doesn't mind traffic. E2D wants all CMS students to be successful. I know someone who is on her way.
I'd love to hear more about how you worked with the mayor of Davidson, and maybe something about how your lemonade stand.
Okay. So, you know, a few things that I've learned in the last couple of years is that if you bring to the attention of your mayor and your people who've been elected the possibilities that can occur that are positive as a result of helping people get a computer for the first time, and the fact that communities already have so many assets sort of hiding in plain sight. You know, we went to the mayor and said, we know that there are computers out there. We know that there are good people who would be willing to donate money to this. We live in a town that has a college campus. Davidson College is in Davidson, North Carolina. So we have literally hundreds of college kids who like to volunteer for E2D and help us train and help us work on computers. And we've got a team at Davidson College of 8 economics majors that do data analytics for us based on Charlotte-Mecklenburg school data and how our kids are performing. But when we first started raising money in the first year, we decided, okay, we really want to spread the mission of E2D to, you know, beyond just a few corporate donors. We really just wanted to get more people in the community involved. And so we went to the elementary school and said, why don't we see if we can just host a bunch of lemonade stands on a Saturday? And kids love that sort of thing, and if we do it in a big sort of collective way, we'll raise some money, but more than anything, we'll raise awareness about digital inclusion. And so we put a little bit of elbow grease to it, but you know, in a town of 10,000 people, we raised in 3 hours using paper and water and cups. We raised almost $4,000 in 3 hours. We've done this every year since. This last year, we raised $19,000 in lemonade sales, and we also got a massive grant from Google Fiber, who sponsored everybody's lemonade and everybody's cooler and everybody's cups. So lemonade has become one of the signature events for E2D each year.
Thanks, Pat. And so some of the lessons that I hear you talk about is, one is get the city folks involved, work collaboratively with the city. And we really appreciate that because we feel like that's an incredible value. Connect with your universities. Ensure that you get the kids involved, and through that, get the parents involved. Find corporate donors and corporate connections in your community who can help. Recognition is helpful to spreading the message. All of those are things I hear you saying. Any other lessons you'd like to share?
Well, I would just say that every community has a unique set of assets. But really, every community does have some assets. It's just a matter of figuring it out. We were talking with a very rural county in the mountains of North Carolina, and they said, well, you know, we don't have a Davidson College, and we don't have a Lowe's. I said, well, you know what you do have is you do have this large direct mail company that sends out catalogs, and you do have broadband in towns. And you know, so we just sort of started cataloging the assets that this community had. And I think that they're on their way to coming up with a solution. When I was out in Minneapolis at the broadband conference that Deb was at as well a couple of months ago, I had a gentleman from Lincoln, Nebraska come up to me and say, we have all these assets sort of out there individually in their silo, and we just are sort of having a hard time, lacking the will to pull all the pieces together. Would you be willing to help us do that? And I was like, not only would I be willing to do it, this is why I do what we do. We want to be in a position not just to solve our own problems, but to help people think brightly about how maybe y'all can come up with really viable solutions in your communities as well. We've done it in a small town the size of Davidson. We've done it in a region of our county which is about 100,000 people, and now we're doing it in a city of over 1 million. And so I do feel like some of the experiences that we've had in terms of getting the community to support, getting the mayors to support. John Woods, the mayor of Davidson, supported us instantly. I asked for a meeting with Mayor Jennifer Roberts of Charlotte, North Carolina. I had it 3 days later. People understand the value of how this can help the community.
Right, and one other question, Pat, if you don't mind, and that is, Davidson has a municipal broadband utility. How was that leveraged to help ensure kids had home access?
Yeah, so I went to the mayor and said, listen, I happen to own a municipal broadband network, albeit 1/10,000th of it. I said, I really think that if we're going to own a municipal broadband network, it really makes sense for us to rethink about what were all the reasons for us doing it. Was it really so that we could sell as much HBO as possible to each other, or was it also to serve the entire community? And I just posed the question: what if anything, are you guys doing for the lowest quintile in this area? And I don't know that I ever got an answer, but I did get the distinct sense that they weren't doing anything in particular. And so we went to them and said, the best we can see in the market, there's a bell curve somewhere between $10 and $20 a month. It might be limited in terms of how much data or the speed of data, but there are $10 to $20 plans just about everywhere in the United States. We need to have one as well. And so the deal that we have with My Connection is they wire the houses for free. Our families get as much internet as they need when they want, and they pay $13.99 a month. And when we first did it in Davidson, and we took on the burden of helping them get the computer as well as the internet, and they paid $10 a month for a year, and we took care of the cost of the internet and supplemented it somewhat through donations. And then at the end of the first year, all of those families became customers of My Connection in their own right. The bills went directly to them.
That's great. Thanks, Pat. So I think the message that everybody can do something is an important one. I think somebody's got their line unmuted. If your line is unmuted, please mute it. Thank you. So before we end the webinar, there are a couple of FAQs. Can I apply for both awards? The answer is yes, you can apply for both awards if you have programs that meet both criteria. Can I reapply if I won last year? Yes, you can reapply if you won last year, but it must be for a different program. If you applied last year, you can reapply this year, and I in fact encourage you to. We had a lot of amazing projects that we just could not award to last year because we had limited options. So please do reapply. You do not have to be a member of Next Century Cities or a Google Fiber city to win, and in fact, several of the cities that won last year were not members of either organization or associated with either organization. Our judges are separate from us, and so we do not have anything to do with the eventual winners. So the big question I get a lot is, what do we win? And what you win is recognition, one, a wonderful award that you can place in City Hall, a trip for 2 staff to attend the award presentation. Last year it was the National League of Cities. It may again be, we haven't determined that yet, but we will make sure you know where and when, and we will be in touch. So 2 people will be able to attend the award presentation. We will assist you with press. We will help uplift your award and your opportunity, as we have done for Davidson and all of the other cities engaged. So who will be judging the award? It's a variety of experts. We are still in the process of hearing back from the folks we've reached out to, but they are all nationally known experts in the field of digital inclusion. What if you have questions? If you have questions, you can reach out to me personally, deb@nextcenturycities.org. You can reach out through our website. You can reach out directly to anybody on the team. We are happy to assist you in any way we can. Then if you have trouble with your submission, so the submission is actually short and easy, and it is a Google form. So with limited space, so you may want to take a look at it in advance so that you can plan your wording so as not to make it too long. And we think it's a very simple process to submit. If you have any difficulty doing that, please do contact me directly. We did have one organization that last minute last year had difficulty, and we just helped them get it into the system on time and without a problem. So don't hesitate to do that. I'm going to pause just for a moment here and see if there are any other questions. Hearing none, I want to thank you all for joining the call. I have to admit that it's the first time I've had somebody speak over my webinar like that, and it definitely was humorous. So I do hope that everybody online will consider applying for the award and will spread the word about the effort. We really hope to lift up communities that are working on this important issue. And I so look forward to hearing about your creative projects and reading your applications. Again, feel free to connect with me at any point if you have questions. And thank you again to Pat for your wonderful presentation. And thank you for joining.
Take care.